The world of modern firearms manufacturing sits at a strange crossroads where industry, politics, culture, and ethics meet. Walk into that world and you will find more than machines and metal. You'll find designers balancing legacy and innovation, assembly lines mixing automation with careful human hands, compliance teams dealing with a thicket of laws, and a marketplace that is as much about identity and hobby as it is about commerce. The AR-15 in particular has become a symbol, simultaneously a technological archetype, a cultural flashpoint, and a massive commercial product. Exploring how that industry operates, weighed without offering technical instructions or operational detail, reveals not only how factories function at a broad level, but why the conversation around them is so heated. The AR-15 began its life as a lightweight, modular rifle design, introduced in the mid-20th century and later adapted into countless variations. Over decades, it was refined by manufacturers and users, and its modularity made it unusually adaptable. Different barrels, stocks, triggers, and accessories could be fitted for different roles. That adaptability, the ability to upgrade, customize, and accessorize, is a large part of why certain families of rifles captured so much of the civilian market. But the story of a factory making this product is less about the gun's mythos and more about the practical realities of sourcing components, maintaining quality and safety, meeting regulatory requirements, and serving customer demand. A modern U.S. small arms factory is rarely the movie image of secretive men hunched over benches. It is an industrial operation subject to many of the same pressures as any other manufacturing sector. Supply chain constraints, workforce management, cost efficiencies, quality systems, and customer relations. The facility will typically be divided into functional zones: design and engineering, parts fabrication, if the company makes parts in-house, sub-assembly stations, final assembly, finishing and surface treatment, inspection and testing in a strictly controlled sense, warehousing and shipping. Some companies vertically integrate, producing barrels, receivers, or electronic modules in-house, while others are assemblers, sourcing many components from specialized suppliers. These strategic choices shape capital expenditures, workforce skills, and regulatory exposure. Design teams in these companies often consist of engineers and product managers who translate customer expectations and legal constraints into marketable models. They do not write secret blueprints in the shadows. They respond to consumer trends, perform durability modeling, consider ergonomics and materials decisions, and think about manufacturability. The engineering work sits at a high level. What materials meet cost and performance goals, what geometries deliver reliability across conditions, and how to design parts so they can be produced and inspected consistently. This is industrial design rooted in practical realities, not a manual for construction. Sourcing components is a major piece of the puzzle. Factories buy steel, aluminum, polymers, springs, fasteners, optics, and electronic modules from a global network of suppliers. Each source has its own cycle and risk profile: pricing volatility for metals, lead times for semiconductors and sensors, shipping disruptions, and geopolitical constraints. Recent years' events, trade disputes, pandemic disruptions, and semiconductor shortages have highlighted how sensitive even this industry is to global supply chain shocks. Some producers maintain relationships with domestic suppliers to reduce geopolitical risk. Others rely on specialized overseas vendors for cost or unique capabilities. Supply chains are managed carefully because delays or inferior materials can affect product reliability and business reputation. Regulatory compliance shapes nearly every aspect of production. Federal agencies, notably the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives, ATF, maintain oversight of manufacturers through licensing, record-keeping, and inspection regimes. There are also state and local regulations that vary widely. As a result, manufacturers assign significant resources to legal and compliance teams that ensure proper paperwork, traceability, and adherence to changing rules. Compliance goes beyond forms. It informs product choices, what features are legally permissible and in which markets, distribution strategies, how products are marketed and to whom, and export controls. Because the regulatory environment changes in response to policy and court decisions, manufacturers must maintain agility in their product strategies. Quality control in firearm production is rigorous in principle, not because of an industry pet peeve, but because failure has severe consequences for safety and legal exposure. Factories maintain inspection regimes, calibration schedules for equipment, and documentation for deviations. Components are typically subject to dimensional checks and visual inspections. Assemblies are verified to meet tolerances, and finished products are verified for function in non-operational ways that confirm fit and functionality without divulging technical procedures. Companies often pursue third-party certifications for their quality management systems, such as ISO standards, to standardize processes. The aim is to produce consistent products that perform as intended under normal use and to have records proving that due diligence was followed. Workforce issues are a human story often overshadowed by political headlines. Skilled machinists, assemblers, quality engineers, logistics staff, and safety officers make up the factory workforce. Many workers are proud of their craft. They take satisfaction from precision work, from hitting tolerances and seeing a final product that reflects their skill. The industry has a wide age range in its workforce. Some older craftspeople bring decades of experience. Younger workers are often attracted by the combination of technical skill and steady wages. Training programs, apprenticeships, and safety certifications are common. Workplaces invest in safety training and personal protective equipment to reduce hazards like noise, material handling injuries, or exposure to chemical processes used in finishing and cleaning. Automation is present but rarely total. CNC machines, automated machining centers, robotic material handling, and surface treatment lines increase capacity and repeatability. But many assembly tasks and finish inspections still benefit from human judgment. The human eye and touch remain critical for nuanced inspection and troubleshooting. The interplay between automation and manual skill defines the factory floor rhythm. Machines do the heavy repetitive tasks. Humans handle integration, quality assurance, and complex assembly steps. The industry also has an aftermarket ecosystem that supports customization, maintenance, and repair. That market is comprised of accessory makers, optics producers, parts distributors, gunsmiths, and retailers. This aftermarket is among the reasons the platform became widely adopted. Consumers can personalize ergonomics and performance, and a vibrant accessory market adds revenue streams beyond the initial sale. From a business perspective, these accessories are profitable and often less regulated, but they also raise questions about traceability and the life cycle of products once sold. Public debate around the AR-15 family and similar firearms is not confined to technical details. It is deeply moral and political. Tragic high-profile shootings have focused public attention on the availability of certain types of firearms, on how marketing may influence use, and on how the legal framework balances individual rights with community safety. Manufacturers, advocacy organizations, legislators, and advocacy groups on both sides are engaged in ongoing, often polarized dialogue. This debate influences policy, consumer sentiment, and corporate risk assessments. Some manufacturers have responded by emphasizing safety programs, community engagement, and worker development, while others focus on continuing to serve a customer base that values self-defense, sport shooting, and collecting. Corporate social responsibility has become a more visible element of the sector. Some companies invest in training programs that promote safe storage, safe handling, and conflict avoidance education. Others partner with hunters associations, law enforcement training centers, and charitable organizations. Consumer education campaigns about storage and responsible ownership are part of many firms' public relations strategies. At the same time, critics point out that corporate messaging cannot fully offset real-world harms if products are misused, and they press for policy changes to tighten oversight or restrict certain features. The tension between corporate outreach and public safety concerns is a recurring theme in conversations about the industry. Economic dynamics matter too. The firearms industry is influenced by macroeconomic cycles, consumer confidence, and the political calendar. Sales often spike in response to certain political events or legislative proposals, reflecting how consumer behavior mixes practical demand with symbolic action. Market segmentation is broad. There are consumer lines focused on affordability, premium custom builders who cater to collectors, defense contractors supplying law enforcement, and accessory makers that serve enthusiasts. Pricing strategies balance material costs, labor, and desired margins. Financing, retail distribution, and online sales channels affect how products move from factory to customer. Innovation does not only mean more powerful products, it includes improved material science that increases durability without compromising safety, ergonomic advances that reduce user fatigue, and electronics that enhance non-lethal features like training aids or inert simulation rounds for safety training. Some companies invest in research on reducing accidental discharges, making safeties more intuitive, and improving storage technologies. There is a growing interest in smart technologies designed to prevent unauthorized use, though these innovations also raise questions about reliability, privacy, and consumer acceptance. The global dimension cannot be overlooked. Export controls and international regulations limit where certain products can be sold. Manufacturers that operate globally must navigate foreign regulatory environments, export licensing, and political sensitivity. Arms trade is an area of close government oversight because of its potential implications on regional stability. Multinational firms develop compliance programs for international law and differing national standards, which complicates supply chains and market planning. Ethics and community impact are at the heart of public scrutiny. When a factory operates in a town, it brings jobs and tax revenue, but it also introduces a product that has clear potential to cause harm if misused. Local communities, company leaders, employees and their families, public health experts, and victims advocates all inhabit the same moral landscape. Companies sometimes attempt to bridge divides by hosting community forums, supporting local education programs, and funding research into prevention of misuse. Yet many critics call for stronger regulatory action, better enforcement, and cultural shifts in how firearm ownership is discussed and normalized. One particularly thorny topic is the issue of unregulated, homemade, or ghost weapons, and how they intersect with factory-made products. The existence of untraceable or minimally regulated devices has catalyzed legislative and enforcement debates as policymakers weigh technological freedom against public safety. Manufacturers generally caution against illegal modifications and emphasize responsible ownership, but the broader debate often shifts quickly into questions about enforcement, technology controls, and civil liberties. Media framing affects public perception heavily. Coverage that highlights sensational incidents can shape policy discussions and investor sentiment. At the same time, thoughtful journalism that examines supply chains, workplace conditions, regulatory frameworks, and community impacts can produce more nuanced understanding. The industry, therefore, faces a dual challenge. It must manage the very real business of production while responding to an environment where public opinion can influence sales, regulation, and long-term viability. Finally, the human cost, the stories behind statistics, demands attention. There are workers who find pride in their craft in communities that depend economically on factories. There are customers who see ownership as a hobby or a constitutional right, and there are victims and survivors whose lives have been irrevocably altered by misuse of firearms. Any responsible documentary view of this industry has to honor that human complexity, to neither demonize every worker nor ignore the suffering caused by abusive uses. If you step back from the machinery and the policy debates, the picture that remains is one of an industry embedded in larger social structures. Factories produce objects that are legally owned by citizens, used in sporting contexts, and sometimes tragically misused. How society elects to regulate, educate, and design for safety will determine how those factories' products live in the world. The core questions extend beyond manufacturing. What balances of rights and responsibilities do we accept as a society? How do we support innovation without undermining safety? What obligations do companies have, economically and morally, to the communities they affect? For viewers curious about what's happening on the ground, the day-to-day reality is often more mundane than the headlines. Teams troubleshooting supplier delays, compliance officers updating protocols in response to new guidance, machinists solving assembly issues, customer service reps handling warranty claims, and engineers iterating on designs to improve ergonomics or reduce manufacturing cost. This daily grind is where policy, ethics, and commerce intersect in practical ways. It's also where changes can have a measurable impact. Better worker training, more robust compliance, improved storage education, and community engagement can all reduce harm without suppressing legitimate lawful uses of products. Conversations about the industry will continue to be contentious because they are rooted in deeply held values, but factual, careful, non-sensational discussion, the kind that looks at economics, regulatory detail, workplace safety, and community impact, can help move public debate from polarized slogans to pragmatic solutions. There are no simple answers. There are trade-offs, hard moral choices, and policy levers that produce different kinds of outcomes. A documentary approach that centers people, context, and evidence offers the best chance for constructive discourse. If this look inside the industry sparked questions for you, consider digging deeper into public records, regulatory documents, and balanced reporting from a mix of sources. Read perspectives from workers and managers, victims advocates, public health researchers, and policy analysts. The issue is complex, and understanding grows from exposure to many different viewpoints. If you found this investigation useful, please like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into industries that shape our world. If you want a follow-up episode, tell us which angle you'd like explored next. Labor stories, export policies, innovation in safety tech, or the role of aftermarket accessory markets. And we'll take that up in a future video.